Hi again, it's David Samuyiwa, and it's chilly but sunny Sunday afternoon here in Gothenburg. I'm watching the OIS under-17s play against the EFK Gothenburg under-17s. It's a home match, and just seeing how these young guys, the future football players, hopefully the future stars of Swedish football, world football, seeing the talent that's available. I mean, sometimes I get the question, not sometimes, quite often actually, what is the secret to producing great athletes? And by athletes I mean, football players, basketball players, tennis, track and field, boxing, all sports. What's the secret to producing great athletes in all sports? And it's not an easy question to answer directly, because of course a lot of it I would say is down to talent. I mean, you must have the talent for that sport. You must, if you can't run fast, you're not going to be a great 100-meter sprinter. If you don't have a fighting spirit, you're not going to be a great fighter. If you don't have like a good hand-to-eye coordination with a ball, you're not going to become a good football player, or a good tennis player, or anything with a ball, a good basketball player. I mean, you must have a certain amount of talent, a certain amount of feeling. It must be, you say in your bones. It must sit in your bones, so to speak. People talk about genetics, genetics also plays a role in it, but I wouldn't say it's the biggest role, but I would say it definitely plays a role in determining whether someone will be successful at that sport or not on a high level. So I mean, it's you can't just answer the question with a yes or no answer. It's a very complex question, which I'll try to give my opinion about it. Like I said, I think some of it's down to genetics, some of it's down to just having the raw talent. But even that's not enough. For me, it's got to be a lot of it is down to someone having the mental strength to persevere, to want to succeed, because the competition at every sport on a high level is very tough. So when I'm looking at these under 17 boys here, obviously it's an 11-a-side match. It's two of the top teams in Gothenburg playing against each other. So you could say from these 20, let's say, okay, the squad is maybe 15 players in each team. So let's say from the combined total here from both teams of 30 players, might be lucky if one makes it. So it's a very few percentage of players make it. So you could be playing for one of the top clubs at a younger age level, but that's no guarantee you're going to have success as a pro. So I think a lot of it is down to the education. I mean, everything for me is about education. I mean, me having a master's degree in education, I really focus on education. It's like, if I give an analogy here, for example, when kids go to school, before school they start in kindergarten. And obviously at kindergarten you get the foundation to build upon for when you go to what we call in England primary school. I think you call it here first school, when you go to primary school, secondary school, college, then on to university. It's different stages of your education. And at every stage there is stuff you must learn to progress to the next stage. And obviously you must have a very diverse skill set. You can't, at school you learn maths, English, Swedish, science, history, geography, art, music. You learn a variety of subjects. And you have different teachers for different subjects. It's the same thing here when we look at football. Football is an education, okay? You start at a young age, and at that young age, the foundation of what you're going to be learning at a later stage should be built. So the basics should be built when you're young, And then obviously as you get older and you start to progress and you come into your puberty and you start to mature and you come into your teenage years and then into your young adult years, it's very important that the education is right in that process, so that obviously when the student graduates, hopefully to become a pro, they're ready for it. And for me, what I see is that there's a big lack of that educational process, especially like in Sweden. If you compare it to US and UK, which produces great athletes all the time, I mean, we don't produce these great athletes like we used to back in the days in Sweden, where we produce people like, in tennis, Bjorn Borg, Stefan Edberg, and other great tennis players. In track and field, we had guys like Christian Olsen, Kaiser Bergqvist, Carolina Klüft, Stefan Holm. These were Olympic gold medal winning athletes who attained the highest level in their sport of success. Look at football, we talk about Zlatan, and we talk about Henrik Larsson. So I mean, when looking at obviously we're looking at football now from a footballing perspective. Those are the two top names we always come up with, Zlatan and Henrik Larsson, from these last 30 years. And in my opinion, those two players, they were built into the great players that they became by going abroad at a young age to develop their footballing talent. So I think we're lacking in Sweden when it comes to footballing talent. The talent is there, should I say, but we're lacking in how we educate that talent and nurture that talent to become successful on a high level. So I think the education process really needs to be looked at, and that's why I gave the analogy of having a school, of an academic situation. We have different teachers for different subjects. It's not all about maths and English or maths and Swedish. You need different elements to become a complete student. It's the same from a football player. I mean, think at school. The student is at school for approximately 25 to 30 hours a week. Okay. When it comes to football, the footballing education, the players are playing between 4 to 6 hours per week. It's not enough. I mean, 4 to 6 hours a week learning football is not enough, let alone all the other components that make the complete modern day football player. So 4 to 6 hours a week of football is not enough. That's also within a team environment. There's no time spent, or very little time spent, on the individual aspects of football, let alone the strength and conditioning, let alone the mental training, let alone the rest and recovery. And then also you have the mental training side, like I talked about, is big for me, the most important thing that needs to be focused on. So unless we start to put time and attention to those details, for me, that's where the so-called secrets lie. I mean, for me, once a young player starts to become serious with their football, let's say between 12 and 13 years old, they really want to become a football players. Between 10 to 20 hours a week, depending on the age, 10 to 20 hours a week of training, of education around their footballing talent is a must. And when I mean 10 to 20 hours of training, I don't mean it all has to be on the football pitch or in the gym. I'm talking about the mental training side of it, getting them prepared for the challenges that they're going to face. I'm talking about the recovery sessions, the stretching, the yoga, the Pilates. I'm talking about the nutrition training, coaching them how to eat right, when to eat, how to eat. All these aspects. And then of course the footballing training as with the team, and also the individual footballing training they must do by themselves so that they progress and work on their strengths, work on their weaknesses. And then the strength and conditioning, obviously, that is done in and outside of the gym. So there for me, if we talk about secrets, that's where it lies for me, is that we must improve the education system of these modern day football players. We must get them ready for the challenges that they will face on a higher level than what they face now when they're playing, like these guys are playing under 17 football. It's just a stepping stone. It's not. It's nothing that is going to guarantee them success on a pro level because you're playing a top team, like I said earlier on. And there, for me, it's like, okay, people say, well, how are we going to do that? Because the clubs don't have the resources to invest in all those other aspects I talked about. Yeah, that's true. They don't have it. the resources. We're not talking about, especially in Sweden, we're not talking about Barcelona or Real Madrid budgets, yeah, or Manchester City budgets. So that's why I say that for me, when I talk to a lot of parents, I say, look, listen, for me, I would do, if my son's dream is to become a football player or any sport that it might be, putting in hours of their week, investing hours of their week to become great at. The parents have a responsibility for me, to really invest in their kids, to help them maximize the potential of that dream becoming reality. Even though it's a small percentage, you've got to make that percentage as big as possible. So, in order for them to get the complete education, parents have to take more responsibility, especially when they're at a young age, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, where the fundamentals of the sport must be taught. Good. The complete sport, not just the footballing side, like I said, but the complete asset, the complete dimensions of that sport, what's needed. And obviously the parents must invest. Of course, these services, they cost. It's like, for example, when I have conversations with some parents and they say to me, but David, as a sports performance coach, it costs to have my services. It costs to have me working with your kids. It costs. This is my profession. I'm an expert at what I do. I've been doing it for over 30 years. So it costs. And when people say, how much does it cost? And I tell them the price. Yeah, it depends. It could be somewhere between 800 kroner per hour to 1,200 kroner per hour. Depends on how many hours they need. They say, wow, that's a lot of money. I'm saying, it depends how you look at it. We're talking about your kid's dream. We're talking about your kid having the best possible chance of succeeding. For me, that's priceless. I will do anything for my kid where I need to invest in his future. And then they say, but we know another guy that he cost half price. I say, yeah, but he or she hasn't got my credentials. Check our credentials, check our experience, check our knowledge, check our references, check. You'll see that the person you're talking about, the people you're talking about, they don't have my credentials. I'm one of the best at what I do. And what I try to relate to is that I say to them, for example, your kid has the latest cell phone. It costs between 12 to 15,000 crowns sometimes to have the latest cell phone. I say to them, why don't you buy your kid a cheaper cell phone? You could buy a cell phone for 2,000 crowns. It does the same job, more or less. You can make calls, send SMS, you can go on the internet. Why don't you buy your kid a cheaper cell phone? No, they say, we want our kid to have the best. I say, there you go. You want your kid to have the best. But this is a cell phone now. So you're prepared to invest in a cell phone that costs 10,000 crowns instead of investing in one that costs 2,000 crowns because you want your kid to have the best. I said, that's the same thing I'm talking about. If you really want your kid to have the best, then you should invest in the best. And I am the best. I'm not trying to celebrate myself here. I'm just trying to explain why I don't understand why parents who send their kids out to play whatever sport they're playing and expect the coaches to be able to do everything around that sport. You expect the football coach to do everything. It's not possible. The football coach has maybe, in this case football, 30 athletes, 30 players in his group. How is he or she going to be able to give the attention needed to 30 kids in 1.5 hour session? It's impossible. It is not possible. So therefore, there's going to be a lot that's missing from that kid's education. And that's why you need to have other, like I said with the school, that's why you need to have other coaches, in this case with the school, other teachers teaching other subjects. So the kid gets a well-rounded education, a complete education. We all know that private tuition, you get more out of it than having a group tuition. We all know that because it's more focused on one person, on their individual needs. And as a sports performance coach, that's when we talk about the personal training aspect of it. That's where we get this individual aspect. That's where we see this development very fast when we work one-on-one with people. So for me, that is the biggest secret because when you get someone who has the capabilities to work on a level that I work on, you really focus on what that individual needs. It's not a group session. So you really focus on that person's nutrition, you focus on that person's strength and conditioning, you focus on that person's footballing technique, you focus on how that person should rest and recover, you focus on that person's mental training, and on that person's football technique. So you get so that they work with the thing that they need to work on to become better at what they do. And then you can obviously see a massive development in their sport. Yeah. So for me, it's if you call it a secret, I don't know. I mean, in that case, it's a well-known secret, because all the top sportsmen and women in the world all have several people in their team: a nutritionist, a masseuse, a physiotherapist, a chiropractor or osteopath, strength and conditioning coach, psychologist or mental trainer, you could call it, a manager, a promoter. They all have several people in their team, a doctor, yeah, to make sure that talent is maximized. So there's the margin of, there's no room for errors. Everything is really targeted to make sure that person's talent is elevated to the maximum potential that they can have. So when they finish their career, no one can say, well, we didn't give 100%, or we didn't have this, we didn't have that. That's how we have to think. If you really want to see these young guys who are out here playing today, more percentage of them making it to the pro level, we have to invest more time in them. So therefore, parents, because that's how it is right here now. That's how it is here right now. Parents have to invest in their kids more on improving their talents. You can't leave it to the football clubs or the coaches to do it. You can't, because in fact most of the football coaches are not even 100% employed. And like I said, also the time frame, 6 hours a week is not enough. It's way short of being enough. If you spend 30 hours at school learning multiple subjects, you can't spend 30 hours a week learning multiple subjects at school. You can't spend 6 hours of football training and expect to become a great football player. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. So I mean, for me, it's like secrets. It's not about secrets. It's just about really fine-tuning and putting in the right people around that talent to make sure that it's maximized. And also having the right people, like I said. Sometimes parents see me training with senior athletes, guys who are like, well into their puberty, or even, in the adult age. And they have young kids, 12, 13 years old, for example. And they come to me and say, oh, but you trained them really hard. I say, yeah, but these are senior players. They think that maybe I'm gonna train their kid who's 13 and has no base the same way I'm gonna train a pro football player, a pro who's like in his 20s, or a young adult who's on the verge of becoming a pro. Of course not. You adapt the training according to the person you have and their capabilities. You have some 13-year-olds who are in their puberty, so you can do more. You can have some 13-year-olds who have just started and they're not yet into their puberty, so you do much less. You start. That's why it's called personal training. Yeah. You're there to work with the individual at the level that they're at. So that sometimes when I get those questions, I think they're just very stupid, because obviously you're not gonna take a 13-year-old into the gym and start doing heavy deadlifts or having them to run with a lot of resistance. Of course not. You start them from their level. So and of course maybe the parents, they shouldn't know, because at the end of the day, like I said, they're not performance coach. So it's all about really just once the kid decides to become serious, I will always say, all right, what does that kid need to work on to become better? I go through the 5 key elements again. Strength and conditioning is a must. Having the right nutrition is a must. Having the right football, in this case football, the right education in that particular sport. In this case football, having obviously a very good footballing technique. Mental training is a must, and the rest and recovery is a must. These are the 5 elements. So you must surround them with people that can give them those 5 elements on a very, very high level from a young age. Sometimes you see some clubs, they have the best coaches in the senior levels of the sport, the senior level of football, for example. Let's focus on football. Some of the best coaches are on the senior level. And then in the young age groups, you have coaches that don't have the skills or the competence. It shouldn't be like that, because in those young age groups, in that young age, that's when the kid really needs to have the right focus and attention on the techniques of that sport. You don't wait until the 18, 19 before you start. So I think sometimes we do things the opposite way around. We want to have great coaches in the young ages of youth development. That's where, for me, you can build a great foundation for the future and not wait until they're 19 and then you start. That's my philosophy anyway, and I think that is a philosophy that I've seen many top clubs around the world do with great success. So top coaches should be throughout the ranks, but don't think that they're just kids, so we don't need to put so much time in them. No, it's opposite. Put a lot of time into them, because obviously you're going to build a great foundation for the future. So secrets, I don't know if they're secrets. If they're secrets, like I said, then they're well-known secrets, because I think it's pretty much common sense. But parents definitely need to take more responsibility, I feel. As a parent myself of a kid that plays football, I do whatever I can to make sure that his time and his energy that he puts into his sport, he can maximise his full potential. I leave no stone unturned to make sure of that, because at the end of the day, it's his dream, and whatever his dream is, I'm there as a parent to help him achieve that dream, along with obviously the club and the coaching staff. So instead of parents complaining a lot, one of the secrets you could say is invest more time, resources into your kid. Don't count the difference. For example, having an expert who might cost a few £100 more, and you're counting krona, so to speak, or euros or pounds, whatever your currency is. Think of what that person's going to deliver for your kid. Give your kid the best. These kids, they deserve the best, and let's help them become the best they can be. That's all I can say.